We're given the function f of x is equal to x minus 1 to the 4/3 power on the interval negative 7 to 7. Find absolute extrema on the interval. Okay, so the first thing that we should take note of is that this is a closed interval. What I mean by that is it has brackets, which means that we're including these endpoints, negative 7 and 7. So those could possibly be where the extrema are. The other way of finding extrema is to take the derivative of the function and find critical numbers. So set it equal to 0 or find where it is possibly undefined. Okay, so let's first take the derivative, f of x, f prime of x. Okay, so we bring down the 4 over 3, rewrite the inside, and then that becomes 1/3. Okay, so if you want to write that instead of writing it as an exponent, that would also mean the cube root of x minus 1. Okay, so you can write that either way you want. You can put 4/3 times the cube root of x minus 1. Those two things mean the same thing. Okay, so where is this thing equal to 0 and where is it undefined? Okay, so if this was a square root, there would be some undefined values here, but this is a cube root, which means that it can, all real numbers will give you an answer if you plug them into x here. So there's not going to be undefined, but we can set it equal to 0 and solve. So say we have 4/3 x minus 1 to the 1/3 equals 0. Okay, if we multiply both sides by 3/4 or divide by 4/3, however you want to do that, it's going to go away. Okay, so divide by 4/3, divide by 4/3. So you get x minus 1 to the 1/3 is equal to 0. If we raise both sides to the third power to get rid of the 1/3 power, you're still going to be equal to 0. So you get x minus 1 equals to 0, which gives you finally an answer of x is equal to 1. Okay, so our critical numbers are where we set the derivative equal to 0. The derivative was not undefined anywhere, so that doesn't give us a critical number, but we also have x is equal to negative 7 and x is equal to positive 7. Those are our three critical numbers that we're going to look at to find extrema. Now, in order to find those extrema, what we need to do is just plug them into the original function and see which one is the biggest and see which one is the smallest, and those will be our absolute extrema on the interval. Okay, so let's start with f of 1. Now remember, this is f, not f prime. Okay, so we're going to this function up here with the 4/3 power. Okay, so that's an easy mistake to make. We're not plugging into the derivative. We're plugging into the original function, which would give us 1 minus 1 to the 4/3 power. And of course, that's 0 to the 4/3 power, which is 0. So f of 1 is equal to 0. Okay, moving on to the next one, f of negative 7 gives us negative 7 minus 1 to the 4/3 power. Okay, that's going to be negative 8 to the 4/3 power. And of course, you can do this by hand if you want. Do the cube root first, because that's on bottom. The cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. And then negative 2 raised to the 4 power gives you 16. So that's going to give us an answer of 16. You can also pop that in your calculator if you want. So we have a parentheses negative 8, close parentheses, raise, and open another parentheses because the exponent we're raising it to is a fraction. So 4 over 3, close parentheses. Okay, so that's what it would look like if we typed it in, and we get 16 as an answer. Okay, so that's our second answer. We have f of negative 7 equals 16. Okay, and then finally our last value, our last critical number that we're looking for, f of 7. So that's 7 minus 1 to the 4/3 power. Okay, this one we are going to have to use our calculator because it turns into 6 to the 4/3 power, which you try to take the cube root of 6 and it's a decimal, it's an irrational number. So let's get a close approximation by just going here and using this that I've already typed in. Whoops. Delete and type in a 6. There we go. 6 to the 4/3 power gives us approximately, keep in mind that's approximate, 10.9. We'll leave it as 10.9. That's good enough for our purposes. So f of 7 is equal to 10.9. Let's say about. Okay, so we have the three values. Which one is the smallest and which one's the biggest? Okay, so for the min occurs at Where? Which one of these is the minimum? Well, it's this one, right? So where did that occur? It occurred at x equals 1, and the min is equal to, min, short for minimum, of course, is equal to 0. Okay, so it happened at 1, and the actual value that you got there is 0. Okay, so that's your first answer. The max, short for maximum, happened at, well, which one of these? Looks like this one. Happened at -7, so x equals -7. And the max is equal to 16. That's our second answer.